I love that video. And I suspect some of the people in this room were responsible, so many thanks. I want to first say thank you to the Missouri Broadcasters Association. This is a great honor, and especially to whoever that anonymous person was who nominated me. I really do appreciate it. I want to also, of course, extend my congratulations to everyone else in this room who is inducted tonight into the Missouri Broadcasters Hall of Fame, or as my husband says, indicted. He told all my friends in New Mexico I was being indicted. So there you go. But I am proud and humbled to stand with all of you. I certainly never dreamed that such an honor would come to me when, believe me, it was 50 years ago this year, 1973, I first showed up at KCMO TV in Kansas City for my very first job as a fill-in secretary. Things were very different, I may not need to tell you, back in 1973 when a woman wanted a job in television. Who might dare to think she could find a job in television? One of my college textbooks promised that there were many wonderful things a woman could do in TV. She could be a clerk. She could be a secretary, maybe even a switchboard operator. Oh my. But we could never work on air because a woman's voice didn't have the proper timbre for broadcast. When I got my first full-time job as a production assistant, I often felt like an unwelcome visitor who stumbled into the boys' club. After 6 p.m., I was the only woman in the building as we prepared the late-night newscast. On the very first day of this job, I asked my supervisor to clarify one of the tasks I had to do. And he just growled at me. He said, "I don't know why they gave a man's job to a girl anyway." Now, I have to tell you, I was in my 30s, I was raising 2 kids, I'd been working since I was 14, and after a late start, I was an honors student at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. While my competition for the job was a 19-year-old dropout who had never had a job in his life, and they chose me. And I was sure I was eminently qualified to pass out papers, show the news anchors which camera to talk to during the newscast, and corral the weatherman to stay to his 2.5 minutes that he was limited to a newscast. I was thrilled to work in television production, especially when I was editing news film. Film, that was before videotape and way before digital. But this was all in the old days, and I had no thought of appearing on air. But after a few months of editing news stories, it occurred to me the reporters were having all the fun, and I'd like to be a reporter too. But I couldn't even get the news director to talk to me. "Oh, Karen, I have a lot of mail to open, maybe next week." And then it was next week. And after a couple months of this kind of brush off, and being very impatient and totally ignorant of any kind of protocol, I just went straight to the general manager. And I had this little rudimentary audition tape that some friends had helped me dummy up. And so I went right up to Charles Maccabee's office, the general manager. Well, you don't just walk in for an audience with Charles Maccabee. So the secretary, though, promised she would get my tape in front of him. And after a while, he called me. He grilled me. Why did I think I wanted to do this? And what made me think I was qualified? But then he said he was going to take a chance on me as a reporter, but I mustn't get any ideas about anchoring. That was a fad in some parts of the country to have a woman anchor, but it would never happen at his station. And it didn't. Until about 18 months later, when I was promoted to weekend anchor, and shortly after that, to weeknight co-anchor. Thank you. And I got to work with my early mentor, the late, beloved Wendell Anschutz. There was a whole lot of buzz in the building when I was made a reporter because, after all, KCMO was very progressive. They had two women reporters. One was black, one was white, the perfect balance. What did they need with me? And this was in addition to a whole platoon of male reporters, male anchors, male weathercasters, male sportscasters, male directors, male producers. What did they need with me? And if anyone was redundant, it had to be me or the other white woman, Leanna. Nobody needed two tokens in the same newsroom, did they? But Leanna was very smart. She told me that if they hired me, she would probably get excused from the purgatory of weekend news reporter. And she was right. So I took on the weekend job. She got promoted. And everything worked out. Leanna's career was perfectly intact. She retired a few years ago, and I moved on. It was a wonderful experience for me, obviously. Over the next 20-something years, first in Kansas City and then at KSDK in St. Louis, I had the opportunity to interview hundreds of people from all walks of life. I interviewed politicians and crooks. Now, no, the two separate categories, the politicians and the crooks. I sat knee to knee with presidents and first ladies. I met thought leaders like Margaret Mead and Surgeon General C. Everett Koop. I spent time with pioneers like Wilma Rudolph and Geraldine Ferraro. I interviewed celebrities like Liberace, loved him, and the famed Oprah. Well, I even got to interview that stellar broadcaster, Bob Costas. I mean, what could be better? But the stories I most loved telling were usually about ordinary people who, through some twist of fate, found themselves under the spotlight of local television news. The last words of a young teacher dying of cancer, a mother whose children were kidnapped, the amazing story behind a neglected monument, a deaf man hearing music for the first time. It was work that included too many late nights, disheartening crime scenes, and way too much hairspray. And I confess sometimes I grumbled and complained, but I always loved what I saw as the primary job, informing the community. While things in the business are changing rapidly today, and I know there are many new challenges, I still believe the foundation of television news must be good journalism, balanced, insightful, and honest. That clear-eyed view is vital to a vibrant culture and a strong democracy. It's a sacred trust, as is often said, to hold the powerful accountable and give voice to the voiceless. So tonight, it's my time to raise my voice, to say thank you for the opportunity to do this work, for the great privilege I've had to work along some people who are here with me tonight, who have taught me and inspired me, and I'm so grateful that they came out this evening. This is all a very satisfying capstone to a career in television news, and I think the best measure is if I were asked, would I do it again? I would say yes, and only hope to do it better. Thank you.